realization just a little bit ago, and I when Dennis showed up, I said Happy Memorial Day, and that just sounds weird to say because Memorial Day is so. Look, this is a time of remembering people who have lost their lives. So we've got a lot of stuff we're going to be discussing today with a great group of people. Stephanie and I are patriots, but the other three individuals you see on the screen right now, they've served our country. So I would like to introduce you all to, you guys know her, you guys love her. She's probably more of this channel, the Pack channel, than even I am anymore. So I mean, she's so on it. But the goddess of the grapes, Stephanie Samos, how you doing, sweetie?
Happy to be here with these gentlemen today. How are you?
Yeah. And then we've got Dennis Schroeder, who had writing wonderful books to help remember people who we've lost. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a somber day for me, and every year this is, and we'll talk more about that in the show, I guess. So, but glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. And returning, our newest member is Patrick Myers. How you doing, Patrick?
Doing good. Blessed to be here.
That's. I thank you for. I thank both you and Brian for doing this in the car. I really think this is an important show today. We've also got who just popped in, the web detective, Mr. Trevor Gibbs. Trevor, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. And how are you today?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you for joining with us. Joining us today, another guy that you guys have seen on the Pack channel quite a bit. Very, very important person to me personally. He's a really, really good friend. Great, great work. Mr. Brian Gibson from Project Die Hard. Brian, how are you doing?
Well, today's a tough day, but we're going to make it through it.
Yeah, that's the way it is, and I appreciate, again, I appreciate you taking time to join us. The first question we've got, and Brian, I'm going to pose this one to you because I know for a fact a couple things. You were in the service. You were in the service for quite a while, but you spent deployments as a medic. How difficult from that aspect alone is today?
Oh, it's very difficult. Firsthand, being the medic, I'm the guy that had to zip up the body bags and put them on the helicopter so they could get back to their Angel flight. Yeah, today's a very, very somber day for me personally because I can remember every one of those faces as I zipped up the bag.
Yeah. And you mentioned Angel flights, and Project Die Hard has a direct connection with someone who was part of those Angel flights, and she was directly under your supervision. Can you go on ahead and give us that story?
Well, the first one is Sergeant Courtney Rush from Illinois. She was not directly my soldier. She was an Air Force person. She lost her fight to the demons on January 3rd, 2012. And her thing was she never saw combat. She never got in a firefight. She did multiple Angel flights. She was a crew chief on the planes that brought back our fallen. Flag draped coffins. You all seen the pictures, right? That was her PTSD. That was her demon that caused her to drink to the point where she put a gun to her head and squeezed the trigger. All right. The next one is Sergeant Amy Quinn. She was a medic. She was one of my medics. I trained her. I mentored her. I raised her up. I pinned her sergeant stripes on her. And September 4th of 2022, she got in a fight with her boyfriend, started drinking, and hung herself. Okay, this is, as I've said all the time, I've lost more of my brothers and sisters to this demon suicide than multiple combat tours. I've been on the show, but I'm going to holler it out. Look, we're building Forward Operating Base Rush, named after Sergeant Courtney Rush. And when it is completed, it will be a beacon of hope for veterans, my brothers and sisters, with skill training, counseling, therapy, transitional housing for 12 single veterans and 2 veterans with their families.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough, we formed in 2018, and thus far, we are the only organization willing to take on that task of bringing a veteran with their family. Some of you might have seen some of our posts if you follow our page. We have a veteran that is actually one of our ambassadors in Chicago. He was involuntary put into a treatment program. I talk to him daily. He's doing fine, but you know what his big worry is? His wife and daughters, are they eating? Is the rent going to get paid? This is why we're going to bring in families.
And we, you know, Brian, you and I, we've done quite a bit of talking on this. It's not just one person who suffers. When someone is going through difficulties, yeah, they keep a lot of everything hidden, but people around them, they're suffering as well. No matter how well they keep that hidden. Dennis, let me ask you, when you were going through your difficulties, and you said that you tried to keep it hidden as much as possible, but could people tell that you were suffering? Did you see a change in other people?
You know, honestly, I think I was very successful at hiding it, because when I finally started talking about it, people were completely floored and shocked. So, I mean, I do not know. I'm not saying this from any sense of, you know, I did something different or better or whatever. I feared the consequences of coming out and forward with what was going on in my head, and I made sort of an internal commitment that I was going to deal with it all by myself, and only by the grace of God did that finally work for me. But I know that it was not the right thing to do. It was definitely not the right thing to do. But at the time, that was all. You know, that was all that I could conceive of, and yes, it was a complete shock to the people that were around me to finally know that, hey, I was thinking about killing myself on the regular for like 20 some years.
Yeah. Well, I'm just simply
Solid
going to
point.
say
Nobody knew.
No, Brian, go on ahead, please.
Solid point. Nobody knew around me the day I went out to my shop and put a 45 in my mouth. Nobody around me knew that, because we don't share our demons. Okay? And yes, by the grace of God am I still here, because he saved my life.
Yeah. Well, that's just two of the cases. Patrick, you also spend some time, and I'm trying not to distract you too much, but you spent some time in the service, and the demon tried to get you as well.
So I was in back in '98, and so when the Twin Towers fell, I was part of an Operation Enduring Freedom, and I was in the Navy, um, and but I was attached to a Marine squadron, and because what I was doing was training Marines and stuff like how to work on the test benches that operate the equipment and the plane that we were flying during the time. And so we were part of that whole shock and awe campaign, and when they lit that whole area up out there, and it wasn't something for me that was one of those things that I was dealing with, but it was something like, for instance, like my brother. My brother is a Army medic, also, and the struggle that I've seen him go through with PTSD and stuff like that. It took it, let's say, the better part of 8 years now, 8, 9 years, where I just seen him go from like, a shell of himself to where he's just now coming to that. And that's something that he dealt with that we thought we were going to lose him for a long time, actually, for a couple of years. And then I have a lot of other friends and buddies that I've lost James, Bilko. I've lost 4 friends, military friends, to suicide. And so when he's talking about those demons, I can talk about suicide from the perspective of committing suicide. Those demons, that's the thing. No, you don't talk to nobody, and and those demons isolate you and make you feel like you can't talk to nobody. And that was one of those things that my brother was going through, and my friends were going through. And that's always what happened. They would disappear, and you'd have to go on the hunt to try to find them. And then, like, the conditions that you would usually find them in, because when they're in that state, it was always a heartbreaking thing to see.
Well,
So
I want to real quick, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Patrick. I want to bring on
No, I'm good.
Mr. Z and welcome you, Mr. Z, to the show. Very, very important day with Memorial Day going on, and I'm glad that you were able to give up a little bit of your day and join us.
Thank you, and I apologize for my tardiness, and I'll make it very quick, but I do want to say from the bottom of my heart, as a civilian, thank you to all those who have served and sacrificed for my freedom and all the civilian lives here. So thank you all for those who have served. And every day should be Memorial Day, in my opinion, or Veterans Day. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for having me, Zach, and everyone. Again, my apologies for my tardiness. Back to you, Zach.
Not a problem. And then a really good friend of mine and the founder of Things Network, which allows us to simulcast on all of his channels, is Mr. Jeremy York. Jeremy, your background looks mighty familiar to me. Is that could be because you're in my kitchen, or?
I'm in some strange place. I have no idea where I'm at.
Well, we're glad to have you here in Colorado, and I'm glad to have you welcome you to Footprints Forward. So please make sure you ask these wonderful, wonderful people any questions that you have. So that anything that comes to your mind. Brian, when I mentioned how odd it sounded with Happy Memorial Day, how should we approach someone on Memorial Day?
a veteran, how do you approach them? Just say, we're sorry with you. You know, today is the day that we remember our fallen. It's not a happy day. I mean, I understand everybody's out there barbecuing and on the lakes because it's quote unquote the official start of summer, but it's not. It's a day of remembrance and of sorrow. We did our cookout thing today at Cloud Rush when we did an open house and remembered Courtney. Today is not the day to celebrate. That's just my opinion. But brother, I have to plug something in there. I got to get running. For everybody here, go to our Facebook page, Project Die Hard 22. At 2 p.m. today, Central Time, we are holding a Zoom meeting where we're briefing the whole mission, and we're bringing on other organizations that work with us. Zach, I don't know if you confirmed up or not, but of course you're welcome because you help us admit.
Yeah, people have they were telling me that you guys would like me to come on, so I was gonna do my best to be there. So,
Well,
but
again, I'm out here. I had to drop off and see a couple veterans, but now I got to get rolling. Please join us for that Zoom meeting. We're going to brief the whole mission, what we're working on, what we're about. But thank you for having me on real quick, and God bless you, brother, for all the help you do. And everybody on the screen, please share our mission because that's the only way we're going to grow. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely be reaching out to you about what we're doing. I think that we have a common cause.
yeah, and I think that there is so much alike when it comes to Brian and Patrick that I think that those are two organizations that are going to be able to work together really well. So, but Brian, please be safe, and I will be talking to you a little bit later on, brother. Hey, thank you very much for your service, and please let us know if there's anything else that we can do for you. You know how much we support you and love you, and you know I'm just glad that that you heard the voice of God and you are still with us, and that you're not one that we're remembering today. You're one that we're here that we can talk to today. So,
all right, brother, stay safe, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir. So, and did anybody else have any questions right now? We're trying to talk to our now 2 veterans, and we're trying to we're trying to answer some questions on their struggles with Memorial Day because they've lost brothers, sisters, you know. So if anybody else has any questions, please pop on and let us know or ask away. So, but my question for you two gentlemen is: Memorial Day is about people that lost their life, but there is that stigma with suicide, and there's a lot of people who don't want us to celebrate the memory of them. I pretty much know your answer to this, and it's probably really close to my same answer. What say you on this?
Well, I'll chime in. Make sure I'm not muted. I'll chime in first here, because the organization that I started 4 years ago, the Price of Freedom Foundation, is dedicated to memorializing all of those who died while in service, military service to our nation. And for me, that includes the suicides, because from my perspective, a person who's in the military and commits suicide is just as much of a loss as the person who dies in combat, as is the person who dies from a traffic accident. That family has that person has lost their life. Their life does not continue beyond that point. That family has lost a loved one, and from my perspective, every one of them is a life that was precious and that deserves to be remembered. And so I'm not about making heroes of people who are not heroes. I'm not about trying to make demons out of people that were not demons. I believe that we should be truthful and honoring in how we talk about the fallen. And not everybody. I will say, I'll be the first one to tell you that during my service, there were folks that were in uniform in the units that I was in that were not good people. I'll just put it that way. There are folks that did terrible things that wound up hurting other people and getting themselves kicked out of the service. I'm not about trying to sugarcoat any of that. But what I do believe is that when we tell the truth about a person's life, and that we can all learn something from it at least, and that we can benefit from that, and in most cases we can help the friends and family and future generations to have a better understanding of who that person was. Because right now, I mean, even with all the social media and all the stuff we have going on, it's like if somebody were to try to piece my life together, it would take a long time and they still wouldn't have a complete picture of it, because you got pieces here on Facebook and pieces here on Instagram, and some for the nonprofit I'm doing, some for the photography I'm doing. I think that being able to pull all that together and tell that story truthfully and honorably is going to be worthwhile, even for those, personally, I would say especially for those who chose to take their life, so that we can create a different narrative that says, when that happened, this is also what happened to the family around them, so that the next person who may be considering it may come to a different conclusion. And that's my hope and prayer, is that they'd come to a different conclusion to say, I should stay around. I have a reason. I have hope. Because that's really all it was for me, was that I was thinking about other people. I was thinking about people that I had no argument and no animosity towards, that would be upset by finding out that I had taken my own life.
Dennis, while Patrick's getting set up again, Patrick is in motion, and he just got back to his home, so he's trying to join us. But we're going to work with him all that we can. Dennis, please share with us your book,
Right.
and share with us a little more of the story. What's it about?
Okay. All right. So I founded the Price of Freedom Foundation. This is our first book that we have published. It is called Silent Soul: the Machinist Mate First Class Alfonso Opdal Amos story. And what this story is about a U.S. Navy sailor who, after 18 and a half years of service in the U.S. Navy, was lost at sea from the USS Kitty Hawk. He was born in the Philippines. He served some time in the Philippine Army prior to joining the U.S. Navy. He met his wife in the Philippines after he was in the Navy for a few years. They had 3 children together, and they were, when he was lost at sea, the kids were 5, 10, and 12, and the wife has never remarried, and it's a sad state and a sad situation that we not only have our Gold Star families that have lost a loved one, but we essentially put widows in the position where if they ever remarry, they lose the benefits that they had been getting. So she has remained unmarried since his loss 25 years ago, and this was a voyage of discovery for the kids, because started out the middle child was trying to piece their father's story together for the benefit of their youngest sister, and weren't getting very far. And as we interviewed people, there wasn't a single person that had the complete picture of who Alfonso was. And so we're happy to have put this together. And why this is important to what we're talking about here is that there's a mystery about his disappearance. Nobody really knows for sure. Did he slip and fall off the deck because the ship was at sea in a storm, wet decks, late at night? Was he pushed overboard? He was a Filipino American who had limited use of the English language. Yes, he could speak it, but he always had an accent. And his compatriots, who were also Filipino American sailors that served with him, said that every single one of them was harassed because of that during their service. So did he have an enemy that helped him over the side, or did he go over the side himself? 11 years prior, he had made a suicide attempt, had cut his wrist, but the Navy had returned him to duty after a few months, and there was no incident between that thing that happened 11 years prior and his disappearance. So it's a mystery that we cannot solve. But it is possible that he took his life, because at 18 and a half years, you think we're talking about the things that go on in our heads. And I remember myself thinking, once I was getting close to the 20-year mark, it's like, well, what happens next? What happens when I do retire? Am I going to be able to support my family? And all of these questions that you wrestle with, and fears, who knows? That may have been going on in his mind. But part of the reason that the book is titled Silent Souls is because he never talked to anybody, even his closest friends, about any of that, anything that was bothering him. And it's like, I saw myself in that. I saw myself in that, and during my time in the service, and I'm saying that was not a good way to go.
Yeah. While we're waiting for Patrick to unfreeze, it looks like there he is. Wow, you not only unfroze, but you changed location and shirts and look at you go. So Patrick, why don't you give us a real quick reminder about what you're doing, trying to support people who are contemplating, and why it's so important for you to support veterans.
I think suicide in general is just it's a very underplayed conversation, and the numbers when they give you just your statistics, they are always much lower than the reality, because a lot of things are just not taken into consideration. And especially with our veterans, like, it's dear to my heart because I've lost friends. It's dear to my heart because I have a brother that went through that, and then I went through that myself. And if it wasn't for the grace of God, I would have succeeded. And so right now we're in the middle of building a network where. Similar to kind of how AA works, but we want to go a little bit step further and have someone that actually walks with you, because that's the biggest thing about when you're going through those dark times and you're going through suicide and you're going through all this mental stuff. People tend to give you a wide berth, and what you need the most right then is people that are going to continuously like put their hand down into the mud and pull you out. And if they can't get that, they can't put their hand in the mud, and they'll jump in and help pull you out. That's what you really need during that time, because there's all these lies that are being sold in your soul. A lot of times we don't talk about this, but like when you're going through these kind of things, you have soul wounds. And soul wounds are much deeper than just those regular emotional and mental wounds. They are so much deeper. And what you need around you is people that either A, has been through it and understand those kind of wounds, because not everybody understands these things. And so you have people with good intentions that will say some of the most horrible things and actually push you over the edge, because with their good intentions. And so you need people that are trained and understand like trauma-based relational conversations. And so you need trained people. You also need people that will volunteer just to sit and be there and talk on at any time, because the hotline is good sometimes for things to talk you down, but I don't see. That's a very minor stopgap. You need presence and proximity is what you truly need when it comes to these kind of things. You need someone that's going to be in proximity even when we try to push you away. And so that's what the intention of what it is that I'm building right now with a couple of different friends. And we're trying to just see what works best by talking to the people that are going through it and have been through it. Because the best thing that you can ever have is that brother that'll walk through the fire with you. And that's a messy part of dealing with people's souls and soul wounds and stuff like that, is you have to be, like, for those who are wanting to help, you have to be in a place where your soul is working out of the overflow, because that can be a hard thing too. So it's a two-part thing of making sure the people that are going to be involved with helping veterans or people that's dealing with suicide, making sure that they are equipped and mentally prepared for those things. And then they also have the ability to for themselves to be able to decompress from all the things that you're going to be dealing with when you're dealing with somebody like that. And then just practical tools to help them walk it out. And that's another thing too. Like when I was going through therapy, one of the biggest things that I saw was like, we talked about a lot of things, but the actual tools that I needed to really get to the next day, there were a lot of these cliche things that just didn't make sense. You know, like it just didn't make sense. It's like, bro, like I feel like I know I'm dying right now. I know my whole soul, everything about me is dying right now in this moment, and I'm in this constant loop. You know, how do I get out this loop? And so the also thing too is that we're going to do it from a spiritual aspect, because I believe that, you know, God is your source. And not to bring, you know, all that into it, but I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. And I believe that has a lot to do with your healing, because he's the great physician, and he can stitch up any soul wound, any mental wound, any of those things, because I've seen him do it in my life. I've seen him do it in countless others' lives. And so that's the approach that we take. We take a God-centered approach, and that's it. The Lord has asked me just to stop it there.
Well, you know, as we have talked about, you know, Patrick, the thing is that you talk about the religion aspect of what you guys do, and we love that, because everybody has a different way to heal, and that's why, you know, we're doing this. We're trying to find, you know, look, not everybody can sit in a kumbaya circle and feel great. You know, that's not what some people are. So let's find what is them. I love the fact that you've found what is yours, and you're able to speak to people who know that's what is there for them. So, Jeremy, you had something to say.
I do. And it actually kind of goes back to something that Dennis had mentioned earlier about people not wanting to memorialize veterans who have committed suicide. I think it's actually more essential that you do remember those people, because in a sense, even though the war that they had served in, when they get home, in their heads, they still have never left that war. They're still fighting that battle. It's just in a different way from the physicality that they are facing in service. I personally have lost two friends to suicides, but neither one of them were veterans, but they were still battling a war themselves. Now, I do have a friend that I grew up with. His father had served in the Vietnam War. And even though that they were 20 years past the war, his dad would be laying on the couch, and then out of nowhere, without warning, be yelling incoming and jump off the couch and onto the floor. Very much so, like they would do as if they were in war. So he never left the war, in a sense. He has since passed. I don't know if it's naturally or by suicide. But I think that when it comes to Memorial Day, we really need to remember those that did commit suicide, because the war never left them. And that we might be able to maybe help those who might be contemplating that. That's what
Yeah. The Invisible War, that's what it's called. It's called the Invisible War, and it's one that, you know, you can't fight with bullets. You know, it's gonna take help from everybody. So Trevor, you're saying that you had it's a day of thankfulness, that you'll always tell our veterans, thank you for making our world a better place. And most people are only, I like this part, most people are only thinking of those serving in combat, but there are many other people involved in the background who are using unsung heroes and supporting those on the front line. You come from, obviously, you know, your background is in England, but you know, do you guys have a problem over there with this as well? Or is this a problem that you're seeing more in America?
Well, for Memorial Day, I actually had to ask the question to a group that I belong to over the weekend because they say Happy Memorial Day, and I went, well, hang on that, and the statement underneath, to remembering those who are serving and who have served. I'm like, well, hang on. If I remember my history, Memorial Day was created basically after World War II. Just like in England, we not celebrate, but we recognise everybody in Remembrance Day on the 11th of November. Now, I know America signed or had Germany sign the end of the war in May, hence why what I would call Memorial Day in America is really Remembrance Day for me. Veterans Day is more for the veterans who are serving. But the answer that came back from a veteran, it left me kind of still partially confused to the point that a lot of people around America today are treating it for both sides, those who have served and those who have fallen. And with that in mind, when I'm looking at it from this side, it seems more confusing. It's more prevalent here in the US, I've noticed, that people are more maybe open to talk about the suicide issue because of war. Now, to be fair, America gets involved in more wars probably than most European countries together by physically sending troops out of the country to protect and help us to live in a world which is safer. So I think that's why maybe you're seeing this as a larger issue here in the US compared to Europe. Don't get me wrong, that I remember my father, he was a RAF bomber pilot too. Now, he grew up not telling me many stories, but over the years that he was alive, you extracted snippets. And we said it was rather flippant about it. But I think men of that age, when they went to war at a young age, they weren't told how to deal with situations afterwards. There's sort of statements come back like, we did what we had to do. The people over there were unfriendly. It was a job. We were asked to do this, and this is what we did. And I think a lot of the military personnel that enter the forces are really young. They haven't been educated in the world society in which we have today. And I still think if you think about most people that enter the military, even in the US, they go straight from school and college. So these issues that we have today about living after is not something that is brought up until the after effect. And because of that, I think this is why shows like this and groups like this actually help to support the after leaving military service, because it brings that awareness, and hopefully it brings the awareness before you actually enter into military service. That's the key thing that's missing, I think. That might be why there is more of an openness here in the US. And when you look at everything by sheer numbers, 330 people living in the US compared to 70 million in the UK, just by sheer definition, those numbers are going to be larger.
So what you're saying, Trevor, is because we stick our big nose in other people's business, it's no, that's poor joke.
You've got
poor joke. But
yes, I know. But to be fair, you've got one of the largest military presence and the arsenal to protect anybody in the world. You're very fortunate to be a very rich country. Now, other people can look around and say, well, do you put your big foot in the door before it was invited? Well, nobody gets invited to war. But the principle is that you're there to help make the world a safer place. Hence why I very rarely will say, thank you for your service. Because a service is just like maybe somebody who works in the service industry. Don't get me wrong, their jobs are not important. But at the end of the day, you've made a world that's more important. You've made it safe. And I got that from my parents, who both, one was actively, like I said, an RAF pilot in the war. My mother served behind the scenes, supporting the land and the country, in ammunition factories, trying to produce ammunition for those on the forefront. And quite often, they were people that were forgot, but they were still affected. Maybe it's because most Europeans, when they were involved in war, the whole country got involved. when America got involved in the World, they sent a delegation across the ocean to participate. So it wasn't really on homeland. And I think that's maybe part of the difference.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question, Trevor. This is for everybody. So, what is one thing that we can do to make this more clear what the purpose of Memorial Day is, and not this is a great weekend to sell furniture? What can we do to make our voices be heard about? Hey, this is about our heroes. This isn't about, your tchotchkes that you're trying to sell. I don't want to hear about your car sale, using the guys at Memorial Day.
Tough question, because I think most of this all revolves around a couple of things: the mighty dollar and the media channels that are out there who influence a lot of people's perspective. So things like having groups like we have here is a start. But maybe, like the email I questioned over the weekend, well, why is it a celebration? What is the difference between a Memorial Day and a Veterans Day? And surely Memorial is about fallen heroes, which is a sad element of war, as opposed to respecting those who serve. And I think that is a very good starting, because I see it just by looking at the English language: memorial, fallen hero; veteran, those who serve. Keep it simple, separate the messages, and I think that would help today to be more respectful. Now, maybe England's a little bit more historical. On the 11th hour of the 11th day, what happens? There is a 2-minute silence that is held across the whole country. A bit more difficult in a country that has 4 or 5 time zones, but theoretically, there's no reason why it still cannot be done. If you have something like a 2-minute silence, doesn't that show the respect for your fallen hero? And I tell you one thing, going through that while in England, it makes the hairs on the back of your neck, on your arms stand up. It makes you suddenly realize that the whole country has stopped for 2 minutes. That is the most powerful thing. In one sense, better than all the words, silence was very loud. That could be an option.
Well, thank you very much, Trevor. I appreciate that. And I know that there's a couple of people who didn't want to step on the veterans, but I really would like, if you don't mind, I would really like to get your guys' ideas. Stephanie, can you, what do you think we need to do to make sure that people understand today is a serious day? Let's stop using it for propaganda.
Right. I think, hearing these gentlemen speak today and the mental war that has been described is very much described in the same way among all of them. And it was also said that most times it's more devastating, right, than the physical war. So as we go through the day, I think we need to just keep in mind that it's not all about the cookouts, and the sales and just the vacation day, but keep in mind that it's a day of struggle for many, and just seek ways to support those who serve today, because it's a really tough day for those people. So that's all I got. I'm enjoying hearing from everybody today.
Well, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us as always. Z, my brother.
My brother from another mother. I'm just inspired by hearing these stories, and it just reminds me why we're all doing this in the first place. To advocate those who don't have that voice and lost that sense of hope. And I just want to say thank you, brother man, for putting this meeting together. We're able to connect with heroes like the people here and those who provide hope. The thing that I think about is, it's the mental war. No one could see it. It's a never-ending war. Sometimes you might win some battles, but what you're doing right now, brother man, and everyone here, is following the concept of action changes things. You could talk about it, you could bring awareness to it, but what can we do to bring awareness to it? By taking action. Like Brian, thinking Brian Gibbs, I apologize, for Project Die Hard, what he's doing, for what Dennis is doing, for commemorating our veterans, Patrick and Jeremy too. We're all out there helping our veterans. But I think Mark Twain had once said the secret to getting ahead is getting started. And I'm not sure who said this as well. You don't have to be great to get started, but you could be great by getting started. So, in order to take action and remember why you're doing this in the first place, it's just completely commendable. So, just remember, to those who have served, and Web Detective Trevor mentioned, it's a sad event, when we're thinking about the memorial thing, but we should also remember those who have fallen and those who are here today to tell the story. Not everyone knows what it's like to be on the field when, behind that door, you don't know who's behind the enemy lines. It could be a bunch of kids holding those guns. It could be an ambush, for all we know. So I just want to say, thank you all for sharing your stories. I know it's not easy, but it helps people like myself who don't know what it's like to be in war to understand what you're going through and advocate. So that's just my way of saying thank you, if it's acceptable. And again, thank you, brother man, for having this meeting together. It's a good refresher of what people need to hear. Instead of idolizing celebrities, we should honor those who deserve it.
Yeah. Well, I'm only one cog in this wheel. You guys, we're doing this all together. So, Jeremy, what is your suggestion?
I've actually been thinking about this the whole time. And Trevor actually touched up on this, you too, Zach, about the commercialization of Memorial Day. And the sad thing about today's society is that a lot of people, they may have some sort of awareness, but I fear that they're not going to really truly care unless they have lost somebody close to them in war or in suicide after the war. It's not something that I even like to say, but I see it. The only thing that I can think of is that we just got to keep speaking up about it. Keep doing what you guys are doing with all these daily shows, especially with the veteran suicides. But I really am afraid that for most people in this day and age, with the level of intelligence and what they're all about, they're not really going to care unless they have actually lost somebody. I, in a sense, have lost somebody in a war. There was a guy that I bowled with back in the youth leagues. His name is Philip Jenkins, and he was in the Army over in Afghanistan, and I don't think he was there 2 years, and he was shot and killed. So I can relate in a sense to that kind of loss because he was a friend of mine. I have never lost a family member in war, but I have had many, including, and I'm very proud to say this, including Alvin C. York in World War I. And he lived until he died of natural causes in the 1960s.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the best we can really do is just keep bringing in the awareness. But for a lot of people out there, they are going to be aware in a sense, but mainly it's going to be about hot dogs and and all of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeremy. And you know what, my brother, you let us share this program on your network. As far as I'm concerned, you're always invited to come and put your input on this show. You know, hey, you're helping us spread the word. You're doing a huge part. So, Patrick, what would be your idea? What do we need to do in society to make sure that people understand? Look, we're not going to get away from the barbecue and the hot dogs, the grills, stuff like that. That is one way that people remember. My problem, like I said, is kind of the commercialization with it. And this is all because this morning, first commercial I see is this, couch commercial for Memorial Day. It's like, how in the hell is that going to help me remember anybody? Because I'm sitting on my ass doing nothing while somebody was dying. So, Patrick, what is your idea? What's your suggestion?
Yeah, that was a very practical way of putting that, my man.
Leave it up
I'll be
to me
honest
to
with
come
you.
up with something like that.
I really truly believe that it comes down to youth education. What has happened, why we're in this state right now, is because we quit. I remember growing up with my dad, and like there was this patriotism, and that was only in the 80s. So I'm an 80s baby. So I was born in 1980 exactly. And so, but even at that time, there was still this patriotism that was ingrained in us, where when you sing the Star Spangled Banner, that means something, I went to a game the other day, and I'm looking around, and like people don't even put their hands over their hearts anymore. They don't even know the words to it anymore. And you got kids sitting there and they're all just talking and goofing around. And I remember when I was a kid, you talked to the Star Spangled Banner, man, you probably got your head smacked off, and like we've lost that. And so to me, I think really, if there's just to put it really get it short in there, I think it comes down to like, what are we as educators, as people that are going out into the world and impacting our communities. These are things that needs to be taught with the youth initiative and stuff like that. Those are some of those things that we would be bringing back, is like, what does patriotism mean? Because most of the kids right now, they hate their country for what? For why? Do you not understand that even though there's all these other things that are going on in this country that are bad and terrible, you have so many freedoms that just once you travel the world that the rest of the world doesn't have, and liberties and different things like that. And they are slowly giving those liberties away because they don't know what it means. They don't understand the cost. They haven't been taught the cost. Like, they don't even talk about World War I and II in schools anymore. They don't talk about the Vietnam War in schools anymore. You ask kids just who the president is, they don't know. And so it comes down, I think, really is because that was done on purpose, to be really honest. That was purposely done to the kids. So we have what we have now, where there is no remembrance of the things that are important, so they can be controlled. And when you understand the sacrifices for your liberties, you're less able to be controlled. And that's really what it boils down to. Not to be political, but just the facts. You're less able to be controlled. When you understand that you had people that took that lost their life, so you can be in school and you can say defund the police. You can do whatever it is that you want to say. When you actually realize the cost that's associated with that, you seem to have a little bit more. You're not put in this box of control, and so I believe it comes down to youth education, reminding about that, and not just the parents need to be doing that, to be really honest. So educating the parents of this generation right now. And then also educating the generation of kids that's coming up right now, and instilling in them that patriotic, those patriotic points that they need to know and understand, so they can understand where they live, why they live here, and the cost that so many people paid for them to exist here. So,
you
that's
know,
my
Patrick,
thoughts.
one of the things that you said that really sticks out in my mind real quick, okay, is that guess what? There are people who died fighting for this country. Your rewritten history cannot change that fact.
Yes.
It just can't. You cannot change the fact that people died fighting for the way of life that we had, no matter how hard you try. Look, we can't change that there was slavery. We can't change any of that. We can change the way that it was looked at, that it's looked at now, and we can understand that, look, we don't change our ways, you know, we're heading back to this racist BS, you know, we need to work for that. So your history cannot change facts. It can't do it, you know. So that's great. Hey guys, I just want to say we are at the top of the hour. If any of my co-hosts needs to jump, please do. We completely understand. I want Dennis to give us his thoughts real quick, and then I've got some interesting facts about Memorial Day I'd like to bring up. Yeah, Mr. Schroeder, why don't you go on ahead and, if you can, answer this question?
Sure. Okay. Well, you mean I'll talk about what I believe we should be doing. Number one is I'm in agreement with what the others have said, but I also want folks today to remember that right now, as we are on this show, as people are listening to this, there are people across this country, widows, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, children, who are at a gravesite and who are grieving, celebrating the life that was lost, and in some way, very, very personally, recognizing that loss that has happened in their lives. And I think that the more that we are aware of that, and that we give those people the space and the time to do that, that's the number one thing we need to get people aware of. Now, part of it too is that it's not in our awareness. You know, we get flooded with all of the commercials, and so people who don't have that personal connection, you know, aren't even aware of it. So I think that's part of the effort that I and others are trying to make, is to say, I know it may sometimes feel like it's an intrusion, and you know, like with what you were talking about, Jeremy, your friend who passed, I think being able to honor those people, pay tribute to them, and to take the time to publicize that is you know, it's the only way we're going to compete with all the other stuff that's out there and get the message about, you know, what this real price really is. The other thing too is that I think, you know, early on, Zach, you had mentioned about that numbers of suicides kind of tick up around this time, and I think the issue there is that sometimes, you know, we feel that grief, that loss so much that it sends us over the edge. And I just want to give people the encouragement that you know, you're here for a purpose. I believe that, and yes, this loss is horrible, and yes, the pain is real, but that I believe that you know, you were allowed to carry on, and that you're carrying on for a reason. And you know, Patrick and I are of like mind and heart about, and belief about that you know, God has put us here for a reason. And you know, the you know, encourage you to say another day.
That's beautiful, Dennis. That really is. I love the way that you put that, Jeremy.
Yeah. One last thing I do want to add to the commercialization, because I think we all agree that is never going to go away, and that's true for any holiday. But I think what would be very beneficial for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, is that if these companies are going to do sales for couches, for cars, anything like that, it would be great if they partnered up with some sort of a charity, and proceeds to that goes to them.
I think that sounds like a great idea, personally. I mean, hey, you know what? If you're going to be benefiting on this day, at least make it count. And you're right; these things aren't going to be going away, and we know that they're not going away. That's a great point, Jeremy. It truly is. My thing is I'm going to kind of step on the tail here of Patrick and agree with him. We need to start educating our kids about what these holidays are for, okay? The 4th of July is not the day that we won our independence. It's not the day we won our independence. It's the day that we declared we want to be free. It's not the day we won our independence. That one just irks me to no end. So you ask anybody, they're going to tell you, oh, this is the day that we won our... No, it's not. No, it's not. So I guess my soapbox is busted there. But, we do need to remember, every holiday has a beginning and there's a reason why it started. We need to educate them. Christmas is not about giving gifts. Christmas is not about a fat man in red. That's every day for some of us. Thanksgiving, we've lost a lot of what the Thanksgiving was. Thankfully on some of it, I mentioned this yesterday. I'm not going to be putting eel on my table anytime soon, as they did when the Pilgrims met the Indians. But we really need to educate people on why these holidays are here. You can't give a gift and say, okay, I did my part. Let's really educate people on what these are. The origins of Memorial Day. 3 years after the Civil War ended, on May 5th, 1868, the head of an organization of the Union veterans, the Grand Army of the Republic, or GAR, established Decoration Day. So Memorial Day originally was called Decoration Day. As a time for the nation to decorate the graves of the war dead with flowers, Major General John A. Logan declared it should be May 30th. Just out of curiosity here, can any of you guys give me a guess on why he suggested May 30th? No. It's because all the flowers would be in bloom. So they moved it. Obviously, today's the 29th, but so we've made even more changes to it. But then, of course, you have so the first large observance was held that year at Arlington National Cemetery across the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. Now, of course, anytime that you have something like this, you have people who say, wait a minute, that's not true. Local springtime tributes to Civil War dead had already been held in various places. One of the first occurred in Columbus, Mississippi, which was April of 1866, just days earlier. And I love this story. When a group of women visited a cemetery to decorate the graves of the Confederate soldiers who had fallen in the Battle of Shiloh, but they were disgusted because of the neglect of the Union soldiers' gravestones. So they took their flowers, they went over and they decorated them as well. So, you know, this was just days before the first decoration day came about. But it was President Lyndon Johnson in 1966. So so about 100 years afterwards, declared Waterloo, New York, the birthplace of Memorial Day. So see, this is kind of one of those things that this proves. It's hard to get the, it's hard to get the information about some of these holidays when we can't even figure out what the holidays are. So, but the important thing to remember is this is a day to remember those we've lost. And I think everybody on this show, and I if I'm speaking for you and against your beliefs, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that everyone on this show knows that if we've lost a veteran to suicide, we've lost them to a battle, and they need to be remembered. So please, if you've lost somebody, if you know somebody who's lost somebody, be extra vigilant today. And just remember that lives were lost for us. Lives were lost for our lifestyle. You can always reach Stephanie at her Linktree, Steph Samos, and you can find out about all kinds of wonderful things she does with One Hope Wines. Her and I are going to be starting a new campaign. And God, I can't believe, Stephanie, we don't even do this for another 2 weeks. So, which is weird. It seems so odd. You can always get a hold of Mr. Z at Z World Webs. You want some of the best websites in the world? You want a website that is ADA compliant? You want some great information about how and why you need to have a classy website? Go to Z World Webs and you can hit him up on his chat, zworldwebs.com. My brother Trevor, you can get a hold of him at Trevor at charityrevolution.com. Trevor, charityrevolution.com. And of course, you can get a hold of him at charityrevolution.com. Correct, Trevor? That's. Oh, hold on. Go for it. We didn't hear you.
I was going to say you can find me on social media too. You also might even notice the Web Detective is creeping into Charity Revolution and a couple other places too. But if it's got Trevor Gibbs, Web Detective, or Charity Revolution, you fit up the right person.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. You can get a hold of Dennis at any point in time by visiting the Price of Freedom Foundation. You can find out where to get that wonderful book and find out how to help them support and honor more of our just gone too soon veterans. There at the website, and then of course you can reach out to him at info@Price of Freedom Foundation. Jeremy, why don't you do me a favor and give me your information? How do you want people to reach out to you?
Sometimes I don't. Actually, anybody can find me pretty much anywhere: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Just type in my name and you'll be able to find me. There's not very many people with the same name as me, or for other issues that they may have, they can look at my team at ThanesGhostSociety.com.
Yep, and that is capital T, capital H, capital I, capital N, capital G, capital S, things.
For the
So
website name, it doesn't matter.
yeah. So, but yeah, go and check it out. And, everything that's things, paranormal, check it out. Jeremy does a great job. Really good friend. So, Patrick, do me a favor. How do people reach out to you? Oh, we got you on mute, brother.
I have 2 email accounts. Dads of Destiny, DADSOFDESTINY 777 at gmail.com.
Okay.
And Patrick Myers, PATRIC MYERS 9 at gmail.com. Those
Boy,
2 would be the best to get at me.
Boy, my computer hates your name. Every time I try to spell it, it always tells me I'm misspelling it.
It's my name too, man. On my computer too, man. I try to type my own name, man. It's like, are you sure? Ignore. I have to like ignore every single time.
Yeah. Add it to the dictionary.
Yeah.
Why? It's not a real word. Yes, it is. So, hey everybody, we ran over a little bit today, but I think that today is one of those days that none of us we'd stay here as long as we need to, because the fact is this is a day to remember those who have lost their lives in any form in service of this wonderful country of ours. Just remember, everything that you do today is because somebody put their lives ahead of your life ahead of their own. They went out there, they volunteered to give up. They wrote a blank check saying, I am yours, do with me as you will. And it cost them everything. They are still battling with issues. Let's work hard to make sure that because of suicide, we don't have to add any more names to the names that we already have to remember. Okay? Suicide is a battle. Suicide is a war. And it's a very, very difficult one to see. And it's one that if we leave it alone, we're all going to lose. You can't lose people and not expect it. One last real quick thing. I would like to go through and everybody list maybe a name or two of somebody that they know that they would like to remember today. Would anybody like to go first? That way we can give everybody just a thought. Jeremy?
There's a number of people I'd like to remember today, both living and dead. Alvin C. York, obviously he's a distant cousin of mine. He was a World War I hero. And also those that are living that I would definitely like to remember, Scott Wilson, a dear friend of mine, and also Tim Kohler.
Scotty!
Yeah, Scott Wilson and Tim Kohler, 2 of my very best friends, over the last many years. They have their own things that they got to worry about, both of them. But I want both of them to know, if by any chance that they are watching, I'm thinking of you guys. You're my best friends. So try to enjoy the day the best you can.
And when it comes to Tim and Scotty, I know them as well, and I echo that. I love you guys. Please reach out if you need anything. Patrick?
This is one I'm going to keep to myself. I got way too many.
Okay. I understand. Dennis?
Let's see.
Dennis.
Okay, I'm not muted. I'm going to mention the names. I'm going to mention the names of the families that we are working to honor their loved ones. We've already mentioned Alfonso Amos. I want to mention Sergeant First Class James Bernard Lee Gordon Jr., Senior Airman Daniel James Johnson as well. We have a couple of others that we're working towards agreement with those families, but those are the ones that we're working on right now.
Thank you, sir. Stephanie?
Someone who is like a dear father to me who served as a Marine, Blair Gartnier.
Thank you. Trevor? No. Got you now.
Thank you. I'm having two microphones here. So I am going to thank all those that we may not have a name for, but it is, I'm going to thank it as my mother, my father, my brother, my son, my daughter. All those that don't have a name here who have fallen for us is who I'm going to attribute my thoughts to today.
That was a great, thank you. Trevor, that was great. Mr. Z?
All I can say, those who have served, I can give two names that are alive today. I'll say one for Dr. Helen, who is a U.S. Army veteran, who is the owner and founder of CE Pharmacy Services, and Specialist Alan Holmes from the Master Connectors, and many more.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. This is going to sound a little bit weird, but I would like to, remember who Patrick Myers was. Patrick, you say that you took your life that day. So I'd like to remember him, but I'd like to thank you for coming out of that. So other than that, my grandfathers both fought in World War. My grandfathers both fought in World War II. One was in the Pacific, and he was also the first part of Korea. And then I also, as Brian Gibson mentioned earlier, I have a grandfather who is a ground medic in France. And I had the pleasure of talking to him before he passed. And he said he was always haunted with those faces. And he said that he would have a kid that came in with something that was about as severe as a paper cut that they would lose. And there would be kids that came in that had no right to live, and they're still alive before he died. My thoughts are with anyone and everyone who has ever lost someone and those you've lost. Thank you for your service, and you are in my memory. I would also like to say thank you to Patrick. Thank you to Trevor. Thank you to Jeremy. Thank you to Mr. Z. Thank you to Dennis. Thank you to Stephanie. Thank you to Brian Gibson for joining us. And especially thank everyone out there who's watched and participated. Please remember that we're going to be back here next Monday. We're going to be talking about this. Just remember, these are lives. Help us find solutions that people need. Losing one life is too many. Losing one every 11 seconds, that's just wrong. We need your help. So this Memorial Day, we hope that you do what we need you to do, and that's remember those who we've lost. Thank you very much. My name is Zach Clayton. I am the president and founder of Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care, and the PAC channels. You can reach me on my card, Zach_Clayton, or you can always go to a wonderful website built by Mr. Z, communitypayitforward.us. Thank you all so very much. Please enjoy your family on this day, but remember, we are here for a reason, and that's memory.